Chapter 1, The Unknown Door. Fran Bao sits curled up in her warm but beloved armchair. The windowsill in her room is covered with small figurines and books, her protective world, where adventure and darkness blend together. Sunlight streaks across her hair as she immerses herself in a heavy, yellowed book about magical realms and hidden truths. There is a calm in her movements, yet unease smolders beneath the surface, the eternal fear of losing her grip on reality, something she has experienced so many times before. Suddenly, in the middle of the page's creaking whispers, a small piece of paper slides across her desk. The paper moves almost by itself, as if guided by an invisible hand. Fran freezes, her eyes growing wide and round, her breath caught in her throat. She has learned that everything has meaning in her world, especially the things that make no sense. Carefully, she reaches for the paper. Her fingers tremble slightly as she unfolds it and reads, "There is a village that needs your help." Fran reads the message again and again, her mind swarming with thoughts. What village? Who wrote this? Is it another trap of her mind, or something real? She notices how the paper feels cold and slightly damp, as if it has traveled far through time and space to reach her. A chilling sensation crawls down her spine. Then, a faint, creeping sound, like whispers behind the wall. Fran slowly rises, clutching the paper tightly. Her gaze flickers as she scans her room for shadows or danger. The sound grows stronger, and now she sees it. On the wall, right between her clippings and scribbles, a door begins to take shape, first only a hesitant outline, then more and more real, until it stands there as if it has always been waiting for her. Fran feels her heart pounding. But she is not one to run. She takes a deep breath, opens the door, and steps inside. Darkness embraces her like a thick, impenetrable fog. She feels fear gnaw at her, old nightmares and the sensation of being swallowed whole. But suddenly a sharp, almost magical light crashes against her. She throws her arms up to shield her eyes, her senses overwhelmed. Then, just as quickly as it came, the light disappears. She feels the wind dance around her legs, the scent of earth and flowers filling the air. She blinks, adjusting to the dim glow. Before her stretches a landscape she has only seen in dreams. A valley filled with small, delicate houses, chimneys sending smoke into the blue sky, and along the winding paths tiny people move in panic. Their shouts are distant, yet they cut straight through the silence. Fran looks down, and her eyes widen in disbelief. She stands above them, colossal compared to the tiny people swarming in confusion around her feet. Some fall to their knees, others scoop up children, and all of them stare up at her with a mixture of fear, wonder, and hope. She feels her heart race, feels the weight of their gazes, and the old, familiar sense of responsibility and unease wrestle within her chest. What does this mean? Why her? She takes a hesitant step forward, and the ground trembles beneath her weight, a reminder that she is now something entirely different, and that nothing will ever be the same again. Chapter 2, A New Responsibility. Fran stands in the middle of the unfamiliar landscape, and everything feels almost too sharp and alive. The wind tugs at her yellow dress, and her shoes suddenly seem colossal, as if every step could change the world around her. She looks down at the little people gathering in small groups, some hiding behind each other's backs, children clinging to their mother's skirts, and the men looking up cautiously, curious but wary. They resemble toy figures or paper people, fragile enough to break with a single wrong movement. Inside her head, her thoughts rattle like dry leaves. Where am I? Why am I so big? Is this another nightmare, or one of those magical adventures I have always feared and longed for at the same time? She still clutches the paper in her hand. The words from the note echo in her mind. There is a village that needs your help. But how am I supposed to help? No one is calling for help. They just look afraid. A sudden wave of responsibility washes over Fran. She can see the fear in the little people's eyes and movements, and a strong urge to calm them grows inside her. She bites her lip and tries to remember how it feels when someone speaks gently to her, when everything around her is chaos. I have to show them that I'm not dangerous. I'm only here to help. I don't want to hurt anyone, she thinks, and carefully lowers herself into a crouch so her face comes closer to the ground, closer to their world. Her hair falls in front of her eyes, and she brushes it aside as she tries to smile softly, even though her heart is pounding wildly. My name is Fran. she says quietly, though her voice still booms like thunder to the little ones. She tries again, even more gently. You don't have to be afraid. I won't hurt you. I received a letter. Someone said you needed help. The villagers stare up at her. A brave little girl in a red dress takes a cautious step forward and looks up at Fran with wide eyes. Beside her stands an elderly man gripping his cane. He raises his voice, uncertain. We did not call for anyone. Not that we know of. But if you truly are here to help, then perhaps it is fate? Fran feels even more confusion rise within her. What if I came too early? Or what if this is a trap? But no signs of danger appear. No eerie sounds from the forests. No smoke from hostile campfires. The little people begin to relax slightly. Some gather the courage to approach Fran carefully. They admire her dress, whisper to each other about her enormous shoes, and a child runs closer, trying to touch her shoelace. Fran notices and smiles warmly. It's almost like when I was a child myself, when everything felt big and strange. Except this time, I'm the giant, she thinks. She sits down even lower, crossing her legs to seem less threatening, her large eyes glowing with cautious kindness. She scans the village. Everything is calm, yet deep inside her there is still a sense of unease, as if something is approaching, something still hidden, and maybe that is why she has come. Perhaps the danger will come later. But right now, her task is clear, to give comfort to the little people she already feels responsible for. Don't worry, she says softly. I'll stay here for a while. If something happens, I'll help, I promise. Chapter 3, A Tour of the Miniature Town. Fran takes a deep breath as the tension in the air slowly evaporates. The little people are no longer so afraid. More and more of them now look up at her with curiosity rather than fear. The village elder cautiously raises his hand as if signaling a welcome. A mother lifts her child so she can see Fran properly, and a couple of brave boys begin to wave. Fran smiles shyly, her cheeks flushing faintly, and she almost feels like she is dreaming. Is this really my life now? She thinks, looking around. She is soon allowed to walk carefully through the village, though a friendly, "Be careful not to step on anyone," is shouted up at her by one of the women, drawing a small laugh from both Fran and the villagers. She moves calmly through the streets, noticing how incredibly small everything looks. The houses are like dollhouses, the street lamps resemble matchsticks, and the wells are no bigger than cups. She constantly watches her feet, stepping as gently as she possibly can to avoid knocking anything over. Several children run along behind her, pointing and giggling at her enormous shoes, and Fran waves down at them, bending as low as she can and asking softly, "What kind of place is this? Do you have any animals? Is there a library?" Her curiosity making her seem almost childlike herself. She tries to joke, taking very small steps as if afraid she might topple the entire village with a single wrong move. Some women invite her to see their stalls with tiny apples and cakes. She is even allowed to taste a small cake, which she carefully balances on her fingertip while the children watch with wide eyes. "That's the smallest cake I've ever seen," she says, and the children laugh. There is laughter and chatter. She even helps a family repair a roof that was blown off in last night's storm, gently lifting the little roof and placing it back with 2 fingers, like a giant puppeteer. The little people clap and cheer, and Fran feels warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she has not felt in a long time. She belongs, at least for a moment. But then, suddenly, the mood breaks. Shouts erupt from a group of little people running in from the other end of the town. Their faces are pale, and they wave their arms desperately. "Help! Help! Someone is coming! A girl! She's a giant, maybe even bigger than you!" Fran freezes, her gaze following their pointing fingers. She slowly straightens and looks toward the horizon. And there, above the rooftops, amid drifting clouds of dust, rises a new, enormous figure. A girl with dark, flowing hair, furious eyes, and a violent, charging energy. Fran feels adrenaline surge through her body. She steps protectively in front of the villagers, her thoughts racing. Is this who I'm supposed to protect them from? Is this who the letter warned about? She stands ready, determined to defend the little people as the new giant girl approaches. And just as their eyes meet, time seems to freeze for a single moment. Chapter 4, Play or Life. The ground begins to tremble again, this time not from Fran's careful steps, but from something heavier, more reckless. The other girl moves between the houses without hesitation. Her bare feet crush wood and stone, roofs slide off like paper, and small screams scatter like birds taking flight in panic. She laughs softly, almost with interest, as she watches buildings give way beneath her weight. Fran sees it all at once. The smoke, the dust, the little people running in every direction. No, this is wrong, she thinks, a tight knot forming in her stomach. She hurries forward, but her movements are heavy with fear of causing harm. She calls down to the people, urging them to run, to hide, to stay together. The other girl stops abruptly. She has noticed them. A small girl stands frozen in the middle of the street, paralyzed by fear, while her father clutches her tightly, trying to pull her away. The shadow of the strange giant girl falls over them. Her foot lifts slowly, almost curiously, as if she is considering how much it would take. Fran acts before she can think. She charges forward and slams her shoulder hard into the other girl's side. The impact sends her away from the street, and the ground releases a deep, thunderous crash. Fran immediately plants herself wide in front of the two small ones, spreads her legs, and drives her foot firmly into the ground like a living shield. Dust swirls around her ankles as she bends down and meets the little girl's and her father's eyes. "Run," she says firmly, but gently. "Now." They do not hesitate this time. The other girl rises slowly, angrily. Her eyes are dark, glittering with something that is not fear, but irritation at being interrupted. She brushes rubble off her leg and stares straight at Fran. "Hey," she says with a crooked smile. "What are you doing?" Fran straightens, her hands clenching into fists. She feels anger mixing with confusion. "What are you doing?" she shouts back. "This isn't a playground. These are real people. They feel pain. They're afraid." The girl snorts. "Relax, I'm just here to play. You don't need to get involved." "Yes," Fran replies, her voice shaking, but not from fear. "I do. I got a letter. They needed help, not this." The stranger doesn't listen. She takes a step forward, then another. Each step makes the ground quake, and the little people still too close scream and scatter in panic. Fran sees them run between their legs, disappear into alleys and ruins, and she frantically tries to move so she doesn't hit anyone. Then they collide again. It isn't elegant. It's raw. Their bodies slam together, arms grabbing, feet sliding on gravel and shattered roofs. Fran loses her balance for a moment, drops to her knees, and the entire street gives way beneath her. She presses her hands flat against the ground to avoid crushing anything beneath her and gasps as the other girl tries to shove her over. "Stop," Fran shouts. "Can't you see what's under us?" But the girl answers with a laugh and a hard shove. They fight in the middle of the town while the little people flee for their lives. House after house collapses, dust fills the air, and the cries blend with heavy crashes. Fran doesn't fight to win. She fights to hold her ground, to keep the other girl away from the streets, away from those who can't defend themselves. Her thoughts pound. I have to stop her. Not kill her, just stop her. The fight is violent, chaotic, and far from over. Chapter 5, The Dream That Hurts Dust, hangs thick in the air, and the sound of cracking wood and stone still echoes between the houses. Fran breathes heavily as she struggles to keep her balance. The other girl moves with a wild, almost playful energy, as if the destruction around her is nothing more than scenery in a game. In the middle of the fight, the girl laughs loudly. Not nervously, not uncertainly, but genuinely, like a child who has finally been allowed to do everything forbidden. "This," she says between hard shoves and reckless movements, "is the best dream I've ever had." The words hit Fran harder than the blows. A dream? Fran stares at her as she blocks another attack. "This isn't a dream," she shouts. "Look around you. They're screaming. They're bleeding. This is real." The girl stops for a split second, just long enough to glance around at the little people fleeing, the burning buildings, a man kneeling in the street clutching his head. But instead of fear, she merely shrugs and bursts out laughing again. "Of course it feels real," she says, shoving Fran hard. "Dreams always do, and when I wake up, it'll all be gone. So why stop now?" An icy cold spreads through Fran's chest. She really believes it. "You can feel it, can't you?" Fran tries again, her voice strained but insistent. "The ground, the impacts, the pain. Dreams don't hurt like this." But the girl doesn't listen. She takes a running start, and this time she hits Fran with full force. Fran loses her footing. She falls backward and crashes through an entire row of buildings. Wood and stone explode around her, roofs shatter, and a sharp pain shoots through her back and shoulders. The air is knocked from her lungs, and she gasps as rubble presses against her sides. The pain is real, far too real. Ow, she murmurs softly, almost surprised. Around her, the little people stand frozen in terror. Some shout her name, others hide behind what remains of the walls. They look up at her with wide eyes, not as if she were a monster, but as if she were the only one who has tried to protect them. Fran sees them, and she feels the anger rise, not blind, but burning and clear. The other girl approaches slowly through the ruins, her steps heavy, her laughter loud and echoing. "Look at you," she says cheerfully. "You're really good in this dream. It almost feels like a boss fight." She leans forward, the shadow of her body falling over Fran and the destroyed buildings. "Just relax," she continues. "Nothing real is happening. It's all just in my head." Fran presses her hands into the ground and feels the pain again, feels how her body protests. She lifts her gaze and meets the girl's eyes, and this time there is no confusion in her own. "No," she says quietly but firmly. "This isn't just in your head." The girl laughs again and takes another step forward, completely convinced by her own explanation, utterly indifferent to the fear surrounding her. The fight is far from over. Chapter 6, The Pain That Reveals the Truth. It begins almost hesitantly. A small stone strikes the girl's cheek. Not hard, but clearly. Then another, and another. Fran is still lying half buried in rubble when she hears the sound. Small clicks against skin, against legs, against stomach. She lifts her head and sees it. The little people, men, women, even older children. They have gathered whatever they could find, cobblestones, chunks of brick, small pieces of rock, and now they are throwing them with all their strength. For her. The other girl stops abruptly. She raises her hands in front of her face as a shower of small stones hits her cheeks, her forehead, her chest. It doesn't seriously hurt, but it is felt. It stings, it irritates, it violates her sense of control. "Hey!" she shouts, taking a step back. "Stop that!" But they don't stop. Their fear has turned into something else now. Anger, desperation, survival. The stones keep flying, striking her shoulders, her thighs, her neck. She growls, turns her head away, and for the first time her laughter disappears. Fran sees it all through dust and pain. "They're protecting me." Her chest tightens. The stranger looks down toward Fran, for a brief moment considering whether to continue. Her foot lifts slightly, but then another stone hits her directly near the eye. She hisses in anger. "Fine!" she shouts. "Forget you then!" She moves her foot away from Fran with a heavy step and turns toward the village. Her gaze is now hard, focused on the small figures that scatter in panic as they see her moving toward them. Screams erupt again. People run, some fall, others pull each other up, doors slam shut. People hide behind walls, in cellars, under carts. The fear is total, raw, and deafening. Fran can't stay down. A few little people cautiously run toward her as the other girl moves farther away. A man shouts up at her, his voice shaking, Are you okay?" Fran nods slowly. Tears stream down her cheeks, not only from pain, but from relief, from guilt, from all the responsibility she never asked for, yet has taken upon herself. I'll manage," she says hoarsely. She presses her hands into the ground. It hurts. Her whole body protests, but she rises, slowly, determined. Dust falls from her dress. She wipes the tears away with the back of her hand and straightens her back. Her gaze finds the other girl again. Her back, her angry movements, her indifference to the lives she is about to destroy. Something in Fran changes, not into hatred, but into resolve. "No," she whispers to herself, "not anymore." She takes a step forward, then another, each step heavy but controlled. She moves toward the danger, not away from it. Not to play, not to win, but to stop it. For real, for reality. Chapter 7. The dream crumbles. The shadow of the stranger crashes through the narrow alleys and streets. Her steps heavy and unforgiving as the little people flee for their lives. She draws closer, every movement reckless, eyes darting in search of her next victim. A pair of children barely manage to leap over a low stone wall as their parents drag them through a door that slams shut behind them. A cart tips over, grain spilling out, and panic spreads like wildfire. But suddenly, like thunder ripping through the ground, Fran charges forward, not hesitant, not afraid. But with every ounce of strength she has gathered, she slams her shoulder into the girl, hard, her entire body tense. The stranger loses her footing and falls, her enormous body crashing into the ground so that houses and trees shake and groan. For a moment, everything is silent, only the wind whistling through the ruins. The girl looks up at Fran, her eyes blazing with rage and indignation. Why? Why do you keep ruining my dream? You're just stupid! Stupid, stupid! She pounds her fists into the ground, sending small stones flying. Fran now stands over her, not triumphant, but resolute. Her chest rises and falls rapidly. Her legs tremble, but she does not give in. This isn't a dream, she says quietly but clearly. You can't just crush everything because you think it doesn't hurt. It hurts. Them. Me, you. The stranger tries to get up, but this time it is Fran who holds the advantage. She grabs the girl's arm, restraining her, and for the first time the girl looks afraid. Truly afraid. The balance of power has shifted. Fran does not use her strength to hurt, but to hold, to stop, to set boundaries. The girl struggles, angry and desperate, but she is exhausted. She lashes out at Fran, hitting only air and dust. At last, she collapses onto the ground, sobbing openly. Huge tears streaming as she cries out in pain. It hurts. It isn't supposed to hurt. You're stupid. You're cruel. I just wanted to play. I just wanted a dream. Her voice breaks and her body begins to flicker and crumble in the air, like ash caught in the wind. Fingers, legs, hair, everything slowly dissolves, her face breaking apart in tears and frustration. She is still shouting, but her voice grows weaker, dissolving into bitterness and helplessness. You're stupid. 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 In an instant, there is nothing left but dust and silence. Fran remains standing, sweat running down her forehead, her heart pounding like drumsticks against her ribs. She sinks to her knees, hands braced against the ground, struggling to catch her breath. Everything feels empty and relieved at the same time. The emptiness after the end of a battle, and the relief that no more screams echo through the air. The little people emerge, first cautiously, then more and more. Their faces still bear traces of fear, but also hope. An old woman touches Fran's hand with her tiny fingers. A child rests their head against her knee. Whispers spread, growing into cheers. She's gone? She did it? Fran saved us. Some cry with joy, others smile broadly and embrace one another. The entire village gathers around Fran, who still sits among the ruins, exhausted, yet with a quiet satisfaction in her eyes. She meets their gazes, little people whose lives she has now saved. Somewhere in her chest blooms the feeling that she finally did the right thing. Sunbeams break through the clouds and fall upon her shoulders like a gentle promise of free. Chapter 8. Farewell and New Traces. Fran is still sitting among ruins and dust, exhausted after the battle. She feels the pain from her wounds, scratches on her arms, bruises on her legs, small drops of blood staining her dress, but she also feels a gentle warmth spreading through her, a tired satisfaction from having done the right thing. Soon the villagers come closer, this time not afraid, but full of care. They carry small pieces of cloth, herbs, and salves in tiny bowls. A woman ties a flower-patterned scarf around Fran's wrist where the skin is torn. An old man applies a salve that stings, but dulls the pain. The children bring water in their smallest cups and hold them up to her, looking at her with wide, grateful eyes. Fran's heart fills with warmth. She smiles, feeling seen and helped for the first time in a long while, even as the big, strange guest in the middle of their world. After some time, as everyone helps one another, and the mood lightens, the air changes. Suddenly, right in the middle of the square where sunlight cuts through the dust in golden beams, a door begins to form. At first, only a vague glow, then fully real, solid and tall, foreign yet somehow comforting. The villagers gather and stare at the door. Some step cautiously back, others hold their breath. A dark voice, deep and gentle, fills the air. Well done, Fran Bao. You saved them. Now it is time to return home. Fran slowly rises, still sore, but strong enough to stand. She looks around, uncertain, yet feels a calm settle within her. The voice is not threatening. On the contrary, it sounds ancient and wise, like a gatekeeper between worlds. She turns to the little people. Thank you for helping me, for trusting me, she says softly, sincerely. But they shake their heads and smile. No, Fran, it is we who must thank you. Without you, we would not be alive now. A little girl steps forward holding something that glimmers in the light. A crystal clear as ice, yet with a golden glow within. For you, Fran, so you will always remember us. Her voice trembles slightly, but she smiles brightly. Fran kneels and gently takes the crystal in her hand. It feels warm and heavy, and for a moment all pain fades away. "I will never forget you," she whispers. She turns toward the door. The darkness behind it is deep and impenetrable, but Fran feels no fear. She looks back one last time and the village waves to her, small hands in the air, eyes full of gratitude. She takes a step forward, feels the wood of the door beneath her palm, and then steps inside. Everything around her disappears. A soft darkness wraps around her, the sounds of the other world fade away, and she feels light, almost weightless. Suddenly she feels solid ground beneath her again. She opens her eyes. Sunlight streams through her own window. Her book lies open on the desk in front of her. Everything looks the same, yet something feels changed, like the scent of adventure still lingering in the room. Fran lifts a hand to her face and feels a tear she didn't know was there. Was it all just a dream? She looks down and sees her hand clenched. Slowly, she opens it. In her palm lies the crystal, exactly like the one from the village. Fran smiles, not because she understands everything, but because something inside her has grown stronger, safer, more real than ever before.